when you are.
Okay, thank you. Uh, Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the 236th meeting of the Audit Committee, Tuesday, November the 4th, 2025. Can I get a roll call by the chair, please?
Yes, with Trustee Watson online, all other trustees in the room, the record will reflect that all trustees are present.
May I get a motion for approval of committee meeting minutes, September the 30th, 2025?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. There are no comments by the chair. The external audit, Clifton Lawson Allen. Yes, Todd, good morning.
All right, Todd went to hunt down his notes, so I'll introduce Andrew Zabel from Clifton Larson Allen, our financial or external auditor, and he is going to present the status of the annual audit package.
All right, thanks, Tim. I'll try to talk a little slow, give Todd a little time to find his notes. My name is Andrew Zabel. I'm the principal with Clifton Larson Allen. I spend all my time supporting state and local governments in the Missouri area. This is my 4th year as the principal, responsible for the financial statement, single audit, and employee benefit plan audits. If you want to go to the next slide. This is going to be a quick summary of the financial statement and single audits, as well as our opinion or relation to opinion as it relates to the fund financial statements. In addition to that, we issue an agreed upon procedures report that's required by the Missouri Department of Natural Resources. We also do provide bond examination and parity services whenever there's a debt offering, there was a debt offering in September. So the status of the audits, we have completed the financial statement audit, which is also referred to as the ACFR. We've completed the fund financial statement audit as well as our agreed upon procedures. I'll talk about this in a little bit, but the single audit we cannot issue at this point in time. I'll go over that in the subsequent slide. It's nothing to do with MSD. The results of our work is an unmodified opinion, and we have a draft of the Yellow Book report and the OMB report, which is related to the single audit. That's an unmodified opinion, but it's not final and signed yet. We audited 2 major programs associated with this. It was the Coronavirus Relief Fund and the Clean Water State Revolving Funds. As it relates to their findings related to internal controls, as it relates to the internal controls over compliance, there was no findings. We did have one finding related to significant deficiencies as it relates to the preparation of the single audit. There was a reimbursement request related to the prior period that was submitted late. The feds ultimately, or the state rejected that reimbursement request. As a result, in this single audit, you'll see a negative expenditure. So that's what that finding is related to. Tim, I know if you want to give a little more color on that.
Yeah, that explains it pretty well. So this was from the WIFIA program in 2018. That project was funded it was planned to be funded half by SRF and half by WIFIA. We can't do more than 49% from federal funds. So the project came in under budget. We used the SRF first because it was the cheapest form of debt. Then we went to WIFIA. There were about $1.1 million of expenditures that we were planning to reimburse. The paperwork did come to me in time. I did not submit it. There is a definition of final disbursement date that has like 3 different criteria. It's the soonest of. So I missed that by a handful of weeks, so we did not get the 1.1 reimbursed, which means it wasn't borrowed. We paid out of cash, and we pay about 40% of our capital expenditures from cash anyway. So the 1.1 million we did not borrow from WIFIA just goes back into the available borrowing pool for MSD. So we're not going to end up any different. Most of our borrowing, all of it since then, has been from SRF and lower cost debt anyway, so there's not a financial impact or anything like that. But it was a miss on the timing of reimbursement.
Was it 2018 when the miss was made?
No, the miss was made at the end of last calendar year, so it was fiscal year 25. We actually didn't borrow the loan was closed in 2018. We actually didn't start borrowing for a number of years because when COVID hit, rates fell, and for a while, we were wondering if we were gonna borrow into the program at all because rates were lower in the open market than the WIFIA, but eventually rates rose, and so we did use WIFIA. The project we still reimbursed about 19 million less than we expected from WIFIA just because project costs came in under what was expected as well, so. But the loan was about 47.7 million, and we borrowed maybe 28 or 29 million total from the
How's the
program.
decision between
The 60/40?
yeah, is that prescribed by the loan program or the?
No,
insurance?
it's generally driven by the amount of debt that we have outstanding. I should say, it's driven by the amount of principal and interest that we pay, so debt service, and a target coverage ratio.
Okay.
So this was kind of part of the discussion with the rate commission, but we target 1.8 times coverage of our debt service. So the more our debt service grows, you multiply that amount, times 1.8, that's how much net revenue we want, which is revenue minus expenses. And so the gap between that net revenue number and the debt service number is available for PAYGO capital. And it turns out that right now that's about 40% of our capital needs. Used to be, when we first started borrowing, we were near 100%, and then we'll drop to 80% debt funded, 70%. The more debt we incur and the higher our debt service goes, the more PAYGO capital we generate from rates, generally, to maintain that same coverage, which is designed to try to keep our AA level ratings.
So yeah, just to reiterate though, that expenditure was shown in the 2024 CFA. It shows as a negative adjustment because those expenditures were ultimately rejected in the 2025 financial statements, and that's ultimately what generated the observation and the finding. Really, it's no significant issue that we see related to the internal controls, just making sure you're submitting those reimbursement requests timely. The feds usually require you to close out and submit all reimbursement requests within 90 to 120 days. It depends on the program. Go ahead.
Yeah, and to that point, are there any new procedures or processes that need to be in place as a result, or is it just sort of a?
Well, we don't have any more to reimburse from any of those kind of programs right now, so it's not typically an issue. And normally, the normal process for reimbursement, for example, from the SRF program, which sometimes are designated as federal funds, goes between, it's mostly maintained in accounting. They've got more staff. I mean, I'm not trying to make an excuse, but we were at a period where I didn't have an assistant that was helping me watch and manage those things. So, I mean, it was my fault. I'm supposed to know when those things are due. But I don't think that is going to be an issue again.
If you want to go to the next slide. All right, so I mentioned this, but the single audit, we follow what's called a compliance supplement. That's issued by OMB or the feds. They have provided a draft of that. The AICPA and CLA as a firm says you cannot finalize the single audits until that document is finalized. With the federal government shutdown, it's really tough to tell when they're actually going to finalize this document. Again, we have a draft of the compliance supplement. We've done all the work around related to that draft document. Hopefully we'll get a final one before the end of the year, and we'll be able to issue that single audit. Ultimately, the deadline that the feds have in place is 9 months after the end of your year to file that single audit. There's no other, we've talked about this with Marion and Tim, there's no other regulatory requirements that the single audit is issued before that March 31st deadline. So we're kind of in a holding pattern until the feds can finish and finalize that compliance supplement. As a result of that, we've done what's called a split issuance. So we've issued the financial statement, the agreed upon procedures report, we've done what we can in the single audit, and now we're just waiting for that document to get finalized. You want to go to the next slide? Here are just some other required communications. The one things that we just want to make sure you guys are aware of, there were some debt issuances during the year. In addition to that, there was some new federal funding related to SRF. You guys can read through some of these. Overall, I think MSD has extremely strong internal controls. And like I said, I work with a lot of state and local governments, and there's a lot of organizations that use specifically your software, which is Oracle. And there's a lot of governments, I would say, that somewhat struggle with their software. And whenever I talk to some of these clients are Memphis Light, Gas and Water, the city of St. Louis, the state of Missouri, there's a Bi-State Development Agency. You know, whenever I talk to them and they have questions specific to their software, MSD is the gold standard is how they're leveraging their IT and their technology support, their accounting and financial reporting. So overall, I think you guys are doing a tremendous job. You should be really proud of your accounting and finance team because MSD does a tremendous job, I think, leveraging technology as well as putting strong people in place to oversee the results of the accounting and reporting. That's all I have. I don't know if there's any other questions.
All right, thank you, Andrew. All right, Trustee Watson, if it's all right, we'll move on to internal audit.
Yes, that'd be fine, Tim.
All right. I'm gonna introduce your guest, Ted.
Good morning, everyone. So again, we're going to go over the tech and pen. As usual in the IT audits, I do have Bill Godel here, my partner, to help me out with this. I'm going to go with the basics. If we get any more technical, I'm going to defer to him. He knows a lot more about IT than I do. So if you want to go ahead, this should be the next slide or set of slides in your packet. This is, again, network vulnerability and tech and penetration testing for 2025. If you go to slide 2 there, so we do put together 2 reports. We have a technical draft that we give to IT first, and it's very, very detailed. Has a lot of information that we would never want to publish, but it gives them the very specific, what we saw, what we did, and so forth. And then what else? Then we develop from that a publishable report and presentation. Obviously, we don't want to include all the information that we include in the technical draft in that report. This is more to tell you, what time it is as opposed to how the clock works, so to speak. If you go to slide 3, so this is the 7th engagement of this type we've done since 2018. So we're doing this every year. We decided around 2019 that we're going to do this every year. If you look there, you see the only year we didn't do it was 2019. It was when we were deciding to do this every year. So the next engagement we'll do is in the spring and summer of 26. We'll again and continue to do this. We're also doing a new engagement. This was mentioned in the audit plan. Is assessment of vulnerability management processes. We're going to start the planning for that right now. This is where we're going to assess their processes for identifying vulnerabilities. So I think it'd be good. It's going to be a good addition to the audit plan. Now, when we did the 25 engagement, we did continue to see very strong overall infrastructure in place for maintaining system security. You can see specific areas include the various items listed there. I'm not going to go through each one, but IT has been very consistent in maintaining these throughout the last several years. Several of the above are very important in protecting the business network from internet attacks and also maintaining a strong separation between the business network and the OT network, which is where our systems that control the plants and pump stations are housed. Slide 4. Scope consisted of internal and external tests. So basically, we had 2 starting points for the testing. We included all externally facing systems. Summarized below, you can see externally we had 14 different system targets at a high level. Kind of think of it as the network being this building here. So we had 14 different targets on the outside of the building. Now, internally, we had 4 system segments that we attacked. And again, think of this building. We have 4 different floors. Kind of think of it that way. We attacked each floor. Testing was performed in portions of June, July 25. The guys did it from their lab in Creve Coeur. Internal testing, we provided a laptop that was plugged in here. And from the lab, they were able to control that laptop and move around, and try to move around, exactly. Slide 5, the overall objectives were to identify any potential system vulnerabilities that could result in an unauthorized access to any critical systems or data, just financial information about the employees, addresses, social security numbers, and so forth, supplier vendors, customers, and then obviously we want to protect our critical DCS, SCADA systems. That's the systems that control the plants and the pump stations. If you go to slide 6, again, as far as objectives, we focus on 2 main areas. Now, with the external testing, we wanted to make sure that the external network security and network perimeter protections are adequate. Now, internally, we want to make sure the critical systems or data is not vulnerable to actors who have existing network access, which could be an authenticated user, which could be an employee, or it could be an outside actor who broke in. Either way, we could end up with some bad actors. So what we did, we took what they call the breach model approach. In other words, we had no credentials when we were inside. No logon credentials. If you go to slide 7, again, I'll talk about that a little bit more here. Approach and methodology. Our attackers made no effort to conceal their activities, but at the same time, we were not interrupted by firewalls or intrusion prevention systems or IPS by IT. That is, they didn't take any action when actionable alerts were triggered. And alerts were triggered. So think of it this way. Again, get back to my building analogy. It's like we're outside, we're trying to get in. Security's up at the desk. They're seeing us on the monitors. They see us, but they don't do anything. They just let us, because they want us to try to break in. Same thing with our attacker that started inside the building. He's upstairs, the 3rd floor. They see him on the monitor, but they don't do anything. They want to see what he can do. So we perform simulated attacks based on techniques that a hacker may use in the real world. I'll skip one out in there. So one thing I do want to mention, so only application and network techniques were used in the testing. So there was no social engineering. There was no phishing or fake emails or phone calls. It was all system type stuff, just so you know. So again, we use similar attacks, use the same escalation and exploit techniques that they're using in the real world. Again, we attempted to access sensitive data and critical systems. Again, we used the breach model in that we started with it from an unauthenticated perspective. It really applies to our internal guy. He had no credentials. He was just in there. He was in the system. He has nothing to work with. We focused on depth of access over breadth of coverage. It means we checked where we thought where the most risk was, where we thought might have the most success. We didn't turn every door handle. We checked where it made sense. Slide 8, standards and certifications. There was standards involved. You can see all the certifications that the team has. They actually added one from last year, so they're a lot smarter than I am. So, slide 9. Again, as far as guidance, we still, like we do for a lot of the ITRs, we use COBIT, NIST, and CIS. Slide 10. So it kind of gives you a better picture of how all this works externally. So just again, think of the network as this building. We're attacking from the outside, trying to break in. You get to the valuables and get anything critical, anything value, and take off with it. Now, this year, we also included in our scope a system that is actually outside the district's network. It's hosted by a third party. And this was requested by IT, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later. So that's a little different. Kind of think of the building here, and then when there's another building in St. Charles that we also attacked. Think of it that way. Now, internally, we have, again, we had our guy was up on the 3rd floor in an office and trying to move around, trying to move from office to office, move floor to floor. He's trying to get to the valuables as well. Slide 11, externally. The overall assessment, the results. Externally, from the external side, we had no success in gaining access to the systems district network. We did, however, gain access to that system outside the network that is hosted by a third party, the building in St. Charles, so to speak. And we'll talk.
Todd, excuse me.
Yeah.
You mentioned that for the attack on this facility, it was known. There was, we were watching it. Was that third party watching that, were they also aware that this test was taking place?
I don't think so. No.
So when it was not known, they got through. When it was known, they didn't?
Right.
It just makes me, wonder whether or not it's as good a test if it's being watched.
Well, I guess what I'd say is, you've let your answer this.
It's a good point. There's different models to take. When they do watch, there's a subset of people in IT that watch, and there's a subset of people that are not aware of our test. So the people that respond to alerts and watch the logs, they're not in the know, so they will alert. And we, to my recollection, they did alert and escalate that, and then that's when they found out, oh, this is a test. Management informed them that this was a test. That was here. The third party is, think of as a web hosting provider. So they host lots of websites for different people. Typically, they're not contracted to do that sort of monitoring on your behalf. And in this case, I can't recall if there was monitoring controls on the MSD side for that external site.
Will we get to a conversation about implications of that third-party site
Yes,
being?
yes,
Okay.
yes. Okay. Any other questions? So let's move to slide 12. So now we're on the internal side of things, the results from that. Now, we did identify a few vulnerabilities that need to be tightened up or improved, but we had no success in getting to any critical systems or data, any network valuables, so to speak. The network protections and hardening prevented that access. Now, there are a lot of times where we've got a door open and then a door like slamming in our face, so to speak. The hardening stopped us from moving further. So if you go to slide 13, again, the results. Externally, we have two satisfactory opinions. Start with the external one. Again, we identified one opportunity for improvement. That is around that website. It is the diversity reporting website. So you guys, I'll talk about it on the next page more. So we have a clean opinion for 3 reasons. IT requested that IE include the system in our scope. 2, we didn't identify any protected information once we got in there. In fact, we internal are actually doing diversity audit, and we use that system. There's really not any what we consider protected information. I'll talk about that again. And then the system is in a separate environment away from the district network, again, hosted by a third party. So there's really no path from that system to our system. Any questions on that? So internally, we have satisfactory opinion. We did identify 5 opportunities for improvement. All are really at the moderate level. And we'll go over each one of these items in the next few pages. Any questions? All right, so slide 14. Again, this is that external, the first item is external item. This is outdated website reporting system. Again, it's the MSD diversity reporting systems, or known as MDR. It is in the process of being replaced. Again, we were aware of this fact at the start of the engagement. IT requested the procedure. We include this website in our procedures. Again, we wouldn't normally include it because it's outside the network. IT was concerned that the system may have some security configuration issues, and they were correct. So it was a good idea for us to look at it. Again, to reiterate, this is something that's housed by a third party and not within the network. So again, district IT department is in the process of developing and implementing a new diversity reporting application. I believe that's going to be, the goal is to have that rolled out late summer, early fall next year. to go to slide 15. Again, what we found in this outdated system is we found some, really, the first item is all patching issues. It's all patching. 28 critical security issues, 27 high security issues. That's based on our scoring system. And they're all patching issues. But we were unable to really exploit those weaknesses. What we also noted was the web server is configured with insecure Apache directory permissions. And these are what those are is rules for web applications for the file and directory access to the users. And these were not set up properly. So as a result of that, we were able to get in there and see workforce plans, high-level project information. Remember, this is a diversity reporting system, so there's information about the construction projects and so forth. We saw certified payroll submissions, vendor email addresses. Doesn't sound good, but we did not identify any protected information, even in the payroll. All we saw was name, position, pay rate. We didn't see any passport numbers, bank account numbers, driver's license numbers, no health information, anything like that. It's not great, but we didn't see any protected information. So, again, name, position, rate of pay, that kind of thing. Because they submit those to make sure, one thing, to see the makeup of the race, and also to make sure we're paying the prevailing wage. So we want to make sure they're paying properly. So that's why they collect those. Any questions?
Yeah, one question. In that this is an external system and it was breached, is there a backdoor way then from an external system back into our internal systems? And I'm not a tech, so I'm speaking from a place.
I guess, I don't think I explained it very well. So externally, I guess what I'm saying, external.
Hey, Todd?
Yes, go ahead.
I'll take it.
Go ahead.
In this case, no. There is not any way for a bad actor to navigate from that external system to ours. This is hosted in the Amazon Web Cloud, and it was written by a third party some 10 years ago.
Which coincidentally did have a problem
Yes.
last week.
Okay. All right, so we are on slide 16. So I guess, again, as she just said, there's no way to leverage the weaknesses in this system to get into our system. That's kind of what's my next point going to be. So what we're recommending is, complete the development and implementation of the new reporting application and website. In the meantime, apply the patches, reconfigure the director permissions, which they have done. When we told them in July, IT got with the vendor right away, and the vendor applied the new software patches and buttoned down those director permissions. So the next step would be, to roll out the new system later next year. So.
Any consideration of switching vendors, or are there alternatives out there with better security?
Yes, absolutely. So we issued an RFP earlier this year to replace the system, knowing that it's dated, the technology's dated, and so we're developing a new replacement. So that vendor won't be providing that any longer.
Good, thanks.
As we replace, as we uncover these things, these breaches or potential breaches, do we have a sort of a long-term strategy? It's going to cost, we should be allocating X amount of, percent of dollars to this type of thing? Or is it more like we react to it when it happens?
We do have a security budget where we allocate dollars specifically for proactive detection and monitoring.
I keep seeing this IA, the reference to internal audit, but I read it dyslexically as AI.
Oh.
Do we have, are we concerned about AI? I got to imagine it's a big issue.
We absolutely are. And early on, a year and a half ago, we developed a policy. It's very restrictive, does not allow AI into this organization unless it's reviewed, a risk assessment's performed, and it's approved. We are taking a pretty restrictive approach to it to protect the organization.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, one thing I want to mention, we have talked about doing some type of AI audit. It hasn't really taken shape yet, but I think that's something that's in our heads, or we're going to do something along those lines.
And we did recently create a policy, correct, that addresses AI use.
That was what I was referencing.
Okay.
A year and a half ago, we issued a policy.
And then Ginny also has good metrics, which I don't remember the last time you reported, but I know whenever I go to the rating agencies, they always ask about, have you had any breaches? What kind of protections do you have? And she gives me some good data, so we can schedule Ginny and her group to come and do another presentation on just kind of what our metrics are and how we score, because they're, we do this internal audit testing twice, but they're monitoring breaches constantly. I mean, because there's constant attempts, just like bank fraud. It's always out there. It's just, so you always have to be on the ready.
And that's kind of what our vulnerability assessment is going to cover, some of that, what he just talked about. That's a new audit we're going to start. You'll see that in the spring. There's a
Do we
report.
know, I mean, do we know who is trying to attack us?
We typically do, at least the source country.
Okay.
So we do things called geofencing.
Yeah.
So we can fence off entire countries that are known to be bad actors. But we do know at least the source countries.
Those Irish.
Not usually on the list.
Okay, any more questions on that one? So let's move to slide 17. Now, from here on out, all these items will be stemming from the internal testing. That's where our guy started, from the inside the system, and was trying to work his way around the system, see what he could get into. So internally, the first item is the Oracle e-business suite, WebLogic. So we identified one WebLogic system is running a version of software that's significantly out of date, end of life. Just to tell you what that even is. Oracle WebLogic system is a platform that facilitates communication between the client user and application. So basically, if you look at that picture down there, the user on the left, the WebLogic is in the middle. It facilitates communication between the database. And what I will tell you about this is the old system. This is Oracle ABS is our old system that was replaced in 23 and with Oracle Fusion. We had this condition last year, but as in the prior year, we were unable to exploit this identity system. The hardening and network protections around it continue very strong. Now, the reason we're keeping this system around is because it's needed by personnel currently. There's a small number of users that still utilize it and have this system. So that's why this even is still here. I spoke directly for engineering, members of finance. Engineer uses it every week for some of the projects. Some of the projects are 4 or 5 years old. Some of the information is still in that system that they still need to use. Now, ideally, our recommendation would be to decommission this system. But I don't think we're in a position to do that right now. So our recommendation is to continue the hardening, and which they're doing. They've done a really good job with it, IT has. And IT has come up with another method to handle this. They're going to move it to the Oracle Cloud platform. And once it's up on that platform, it'll be secure. It'll be properly supported in a secure environment up there. And I would imagine eventually it's going to go away in 3 or 4 years. So that will be the ultimate resolution, and that should be done by end of next year. So, any questions on that? Next item is another patching issue. Unpatched VMware Spear. That's the name of the system. This is a virtualization application designed to manage virtualized resources. Basically, it has 2 components. The hypervisor, basically what this does is it creates and runs virtual machines on a single physical server. So you might have multiple virtual machines on one server. then this vServer part of the application, it provides a control console that the IT administrators use to control all those virtual machines. And a result of the patching issue, we know that on just one device, we didn't see this ever. It was just from one device. We saw what they call multiple heap overflow vulnerabilities. I know that sounds a crazy term, but basically what it is where a program is writing, during the process of writing, during that process, there's a buffers are created. Basically, it's reserved blocks of memory, kind of like a bucket. So as it's writing, it's only supposed to put so much water in the bucket. But what's happening is it's putting more water in the bucket than the bucket can hold. It's putting more memory than the buffer can allow, and it's overflowing the bucket. And basically what that does, it can corrupt the adjacent data next to it, and it also creates opportunities for an attacker to execute exploits. So skip page 20. I'm not going to go over there. It seemed like a good idea at the time, but not so much now. So what we're recommending is that IT implements the necessary patches to address this vulnerability, and they're in agreement. This year is completed by the end of this month. Let's go slide 22. Item 4, IPMI, Intelligent Platform Management Interface Vulnerability. IPMI is a standard set of specification or rules that allows the administrators to manage and monitor hardware performance. And the issue with this IPMI is it's basically outdated, because it has inherent security vulnerabilities, and there's been developments of more modern secure protocols. Again, we all installed this on one machine as well. So we saw this on one machine, so this is very limited. So this fall creates an opportunity for attackers to gain unauthorized access. So what our recommendation is to disable that IPMI servers on that one machine and to use some other kind of protocol. Management is in agreement. They will have that completed by 11/30/25. And then item 5 at slide 24. Any questions? Network file system NFS configurations. That's a protocol that allows users to access and manage files on a remote computer as if it was local. It allows them to share across different systems. We identify weaknesses in the configuration for 2 servers for this. One was a test server. An attacker may exploit these weaknesses to access sensitive data. But at the time of our testing, we didn't find any sensitive data on the servers that we were looking at. So we were not able to take advantage of it. The identified weaknesses are in the following areas listed there below. Slide 25. So our recommendation is to fix the configuration on these servers. And probably the bigger recommendation is to take steps to make sure this configuration error doesn't occur in the future. And these items have been addressed already, so I confirmed that with Jason. Any questions on that one? Last item, slide 26. Simple Network Management Protocol, SMP, default strings. All right. What this is a standard protocol or a set of rules for monitoring, managing devices on IP networks like routers, switches, and servers. So what string is basically, it's basically a password. And what we noted, they were using these default strings, or the default passwords, so to speak. So that makes it easier for an attacker to get access to these devices. So we're recommending they change what they call the community string or default string to a strong, unique, and default value. Management agrees with that. They should have that done by the end of this week. So just so I'll be checking on all these. It will have a follow-up report probably in January on all the audits, and this will be part of it. So any questions on anything? I appreciate the time.
Yes, thank you, Todd. Next meeting, tentative date, December the 2nd, 2025. Can I get a motion for adjournment, please?
So moved.
Thank you.
Trustee Kistner.
Meeting
All right, we're ready to go. Welcome to the 272nd meeting of the Program Management Committee on Tuesday, November 4th. Can we get a roll call?
Yes, with Trustee Watson online, the record will reflect that all trustees are present because everyone else is in the room.
All right, very good. Can I get a motion for approval of the committee meeting minutes from the September 30th, 2025 meeting?
So moved.
Okay, and there are no comments by the chair, so we're ready for the agenda items.
Good morning, trustees. Fairly healthy agenda. Not quite as exciting as network vulnerability, but we'll try to do our best. So first item on the agenda is a green infrastructure grant for TGP core facilities phase 1. This ordinance authorizes the district to enter into agreement with the Board of Commissioners of Tower Grove Park to provide financial assistance through the Green Infrastructure Grant Program. The purpose of the project is to reduce combined sewer overflows to River Des Peres per the consent decree and long-term control plan. The project will reduce runoff with the installation of one bioretention basin and additional amended soils. The total cost of the project is estimated at $123,780, and the Board of Commissioners is requesting approximately $113,400 reimbursement for the costs of the green infrastructure. There's an exhibit with this. Obviously, it's within the Tower Grove Park area where they maintain their facilities. All right. Next item is for construction management services for the Lower Merrimack and Deer Creek tunnels. This appropriates additional funds and authorizes staff to amend an existing construction management contract. This ordinance authorizes the district to amend a contract with Black & Veatch for our annual extension based on acceptable performance to provide construction management services for projects associated with the Lower Merrimack Tunnel, the River Des Peres tributary CSO projects, the Deer Creek and University City sanitary sewer projects. The preliminary construction estimate for these tunnel projects is $630 million. This project consists of the biddability and constructability review during the design of tunnel projects and construction management services during the construction. The value of the construction management contract for the entire program is estimated to be between $40 and $60 million. This contract amendment of $3 million brings the total contract value to date to $41,490,000. This appropriation for construction management is less than what was being proposed in the CIRP. We budget like a year and a half in advance, so if we don't need the additional funds, we will not appropriate them. In other words, we don't want to encumber those funds. As far as MWBE for Black and Veatch, they had original commitment of 30% MWBE commitment. As of this amendment, they're utilizing 40.3%, so our overall participation at this point is also 40.3%.
Richard, so we're, the 630 number, 630 million is the overall construction estimate for the project.
The projects they're doing right now, it'll be a larger when we start the River to Pear tunnels.
Okay. And then the 60 million, which is the cost of, is the design and management.
Of their services.
Gotcha. And
Or
so,
their review of the design plans for constructability, and then once the work starts, they'll manage that work for us.
gotcha. And then, but we're confident that the 41 million to date plus this 3 is gonna get us to where we need to be at the 60 million?
As of right now, yeah, we've still got, there's multiple more years, but
Right.
it's been averaging about 3 million a year, so.
Okay, thank you.
Next item is the construction management service for tank treatment plant facilities. This appropriates additional funds and authorizes to amend the construction management contract with KAI 360 Construction Services for the annual extension for the construction management services for our tanks, treatment plants, pump station facilities, and various district CSO and SSO programs. The preliminary construction estimate for facilities is approximately $500 million. The project consists of the biddability, constructability review during the design of the facilities, and again, construction management during construction. The value of the construction management contract for entire program is estimated between 40 and 60 million. This contract amendment of $4 million brings the current value to $51,150,000. The appropriation, again, is less than what was proposed in the original budget supplement based on our current usage of the funds. As far as MWB participation, KA 360 committed to 48% at the start of the project. Right now, the commitment for this next amendment is 68%, and we're currently running right at 68% MWB participation. Next item is the pump station repair and improvement design contract A. This appropriates additional funds and authorized staff to amend a design contract. This ordinance authorizes the district to amend a contract with Brown and Caldwell for the design of the pump station fall protection upgrades phase 2. This project consists of the design and preparation of construction documents for hatch replacement and fall protection improvements at approximately 142 pump station sites. The construction cost estimate for this project is $3,947,000. Construction is anticipated to begin in fiscal year 2028. The supplemental appropriation of $468,000 for design services is equal to the proposed funding in the budget supplement. The MWB participation, the original goal for the project was 18% minority and 13% women. We are currently, with this amendment, we will be at 30.33%. Next item is the wastewater linear sewer design contract A. This appropriates additional funds and authorized staff to amend a design contract with Stantec Consulting Services for the design of wastewater linear sewer design contract A. The project consists of design and construction documents for multiple wastewater, stormwater, and combined sewer projects. The purpose of these projects is to solve wastewater problems and maintain compliance with consent decree. The construction cost estimate for these projects is listed below and is a total of $8,530,000. Construction for these projects is slated to begin in fiscal year 28, 29, and 30. Projects are Riverview Drive sewer repair, Nagel Avenue Combined Sewer Repair, Jefferson Barracks Sanitary Relief, Upper Topping Sanitary Relief, Doherty Ferry Road Sanitary Relief, and Fenton Creek Sanitary Relief. The supplemental appropriation of $590,000 for design services is $10,000 below what was in the original budget. The MWB participation, the original goal was 18% minority and 13% women when we procured. Currently, the project is running at 37.71% participation. Excuse me. Next item is wastewater linear sewer contract B. This ordinance authorized additional funds and authorized staff to amend a design contract with Abnett Engineering. This project consists of the design, preparation, and construction documents for multiple wastewater linear sewer projects. The purpose of this project is to solve wastewater problems and maintain compliance with the consent decree. The construction cost estimate for these projects is $13,319,000. Construction for these projects is anticipated to start in fiscal year 2027. These projects are named Barrett Station Sanitary Relief, Paxton Sanitary Relief, Sappington Sanitary Relief, Sun Valley Sanitary Relief, Sunset Sanitary Relief, Warson Terrace Sanitary Relief, West Florissant Sewer Repair, and Woodlawn Sanitary Relief. The appropriation for $1 million for design services equal to that, what's proposed in the budget, and for the projects as it was presented in the budget supplement. MWB participation, the original goal was 18% minority and 13% women. This amendment totals 19.48, so right now we're running a little lower than the goal at 23.63%. Next item is the Webster Groves Trunk E Sanitary Relief Project. This will appropriate additional funds and authorize staff to amend a design contract with Burns and McDonnell. There's a lump sum. The design is for the lump sum project to design approximately 360 linear feet of natural channel stabilization in Shady Grove Creek, 6,700 linear feet of pipe sewers from 12 to 54 inch. The purpose of this project is to alleviate wet weather building backups and overcharged sanitary sewers. This project will provide for the elimination of 2 of our constructed sanitary sewer overflows. The total cost estimate for this project is $14,866,000, and it will begin work. It's actually on today's agenda for the construction. This appropriation of $129,000 is $91,000 below what was presented in the budget. These will be services used to review shop drawings and answer any questions during construction. Right now, for this amendment, the consultant Burns McDonnell is anticipating about 58% MWB participation. The original goal was 31.38, and so right now they're running ahead on their overall commitment at 35.76%. Next item is the wastewater treatment facilities asset condition assessment project. This appropriates funds and authorizes staff to enter a contract. This ordinance authorizes the district to enter a contract with CDM Smith. The purpose of this contract is to provide district staff a comprehensive condition assessment of the district's 6 permanent wastewater treatment facilities. This information generated from the project will help the district develop a comprehensive and accurate asset renewal forecast to be accounted for in our near-term capital projects and then our long-term capital replacement program. The assessments completed by this project will provide the district a plan for repair, rehabilitation, and replacement of assets, and production of comprehensive reports documenting findings and recommendations. This contract is renewable for 2 additional years for a total contract maximum amount of $3 million. We had proposals from 4 firms including CDM Smith, and CDM Smith was a selected firm. The initial appropriation is for $1 million, which is what we had budgeted. And participation, CDM Smith is committed to 31% M&W BE participation. Next item is our loan construction project for this new construction project for this month. It's the Webster Grove Trunk E Sanitary Relief Phase 2. This item appropriates funds and authorizes staff to enter a construction contract. The work consists of construction of approximately 360 linear feet of natural channel stabilization and 5,700 feet of pipe sewer, 8 to 42 inch in diameter and appurtenance. The purpose of this project is to alleviate sanitary sewer surcharging, and again, will eliminate 2 of our sanitary sewer overflows. The district received 5 bidders on this project. The low bid was from Bates Utility Company. The bid was below our design estimate. Our 2-year appropriation, $7 million in fiscal year '26, and $4 million additional dollars in fiscal year '27 for a total of $11 million, was below our original budget of $11,666,000. There's partial funding for this fiscal year from the Sanitary Replacement Fund and from the Deer Creek OMCI for the channel work that we're doing. So this year we'll actually be appropriating $6,381,110 from sanitary replacement, and then $618,890 from the Deer Creek OMCI for the channel work. And then next year's appropriation of $4 million will be entirely from the Sanitary Replacement Fund. Bates is committed 20% MWB participation, which meets our MBE 10% and WB 10% goal in the project. The next 2 items are both ongoing construction projects where we're seeking additional funds that were not planned for the projects, and I'll explain the need and the amounts of the additional funds as I read through them. First one is the Halstead Storm Channel. This appropriates funds to a project that's currently under construction by Gershenson Construction. The work consists of removing sediment and vegetation from 960 feet of existing concrete channel and the construction of additional approximately 1,300 feet of reinforced vertical wall channel. The purpose of this project is to contribute to the stabilization of Maline Creek banks and improving conveyance. This project is currently under construction. This is supplemental appropriation request is for $500,000. It's necessary due to some unanticipated costs regarding Ameren relocation. During the design and construction, there was substantially more erosion in the channel. The original thought was that the power utility would be able to remain in place, and once construction started, we found that we were going to have to move the high voltage lines during the effort. So this will bring the total cost appropriation for $9 million. The original appropriation was $8.5 million. Approximately $4.3 million of this is being reimbursed through the ARPA program. This was one of our, I think, 13 ARPA projects. We were getting about $22 million worth of fundings. We did approach the state to see if there was any additional ARPA dollars, but they had all been spoken for. So this will come from our district-wide stormwater fund. Next item is the Newell and Noah Drive Storm Sewer Project. Again, this action also appropriates additional funds for an ongoing construction project. Our contractor for this project is Understall Contracting. The work consists of 322 linear feet of storm sewers, 15 to 18 inches in diameter. The purpose of this project is to alleviate street and yard flooding on Newell Drive in the city of Ferguson. This is supplemental appropriation is $150,000. Again, this was also a utility issue. during construction, it was anticipated we were going to be able to work around the water main. Turned out that we were required to relocate the entire main for almost the full length of the project. And unfortunately, we had to actually move the water main into the street to allow our storm sewer to be behind the curb. So that increased our restoration, street restoration on the project. So we're seeking additional $150,000 on this project. This is something I think as we move forward with the new storm sewer program, storm sewers tend to be shallower, adjacent to a lot of utilities. So I think it's something we're really gonna have to keep our eye on to try to work around. We are envisioning even potentially having contracts to try to identify and correctly locate these ahead of time with what we call potholing, things like that to allow us to design around them. But with the storm sewers, it's gonna be, the utilities are gonna be a lot bigger issue on projects.
Does like Ameren say, here's, we've got a line here, or is it like, we got a line here?
They identify it, they will locate it, we'll pick that up during the design.
Right.
In other words, it'll locate it on the plans depending on where our line is. But once you get out there, it isn't always exactly where, it's within, and again, when you're doing the type of work we did, a foot or two is all it takes.
Right.
Depending on the size of the sewer, it's like, on a map, it looks like two lines, but in essence, our sewer is this wide. And their sewer could be depending on the size of it, and depth, and you have some idea, they typically will run 4 to 6 feet deep, but you might find it shallower, you might find it deeper, and that's where I think we're looking at, can we get a little more information during design to avoid like these costs later on. Sometimes they're just gonna be a direct conflict, the only way you're gonna be able to do it is relocate it.
Right. Or go around.
You had a question, Trustee?
And I think you may have already answered it in the sense that we need our design partners to be anticipating some of these things so that we're not faced with these additional amounts, the surprises. Do you feel like we're?
Well, I will, the first project that I talked about where we had to remove the high voltage line, I'll be honest, that's a project that was designed probably 10 years ago, and we were never able until we got the ARPA funding and to do the project. So even when we went back and took the plans off the shelf and re-looked at it, then it became more apparent that they could be an issue, but we felt like we could work around it. So it is something we discuss, but I think we may have to add more toolboxes to those designers, or better word, add to their toolbox to help identify and locate these. I mean, again, there's sometimes, particularly with some of the fiber optics, sometimes you get out there, nobody even knew they were there. So, I mean, and then sometimes things happen. Our designs, keep in mind, are about a year-long design, and then there's about a year during easement acquisition. In some cases, if you're out there now, there's a lot of water line work, gas line work, things like that going on right now that it actually changed since we designed it. So, we're identifying that. As we're kicking off the stormwater program, we're meeting on a monthly basis. These are the types of things we're a little bit different program. The sanitary program, we put in miles and miles of sewers, but the sanitary system runs 12 to 20 feet deep. So we're generally underneath of them, and are we crossing them and things like that. The storm sewers are going to be a little more thought that needs to be put in there, but we are going to try to prevent this in the future.
So wait, our sewers, our sanitary sewers are 12 to 15 feet below surface?
Typically,
generally?
yes, typically. Keep in mind, you've got to be below all the basements
Right.
and run at a depth. So I think, yeah, at a minimum, they're 10 to 12 feet, but then in a lot of cases, they're as deep as 20 to 30 feet.
And then water lines are above them?
Everything's above it then.
When we get we've had water leakage from the water system that messes up the bed around the sewer. It's that much water that gets down below the sewer.
Yeah, that's where, something we tend to see in the older areas where we have the brick sewers, things like that. Again, we're down 20 to 30 feet, and the water mains are maybe half that distance. But it's kind of, you don't know it on those, and because usually there's some type of failure, whether it's the water main or the sewer main. All right, I'll move on. The next project is Infrastructure Repair Rehabilitation, Corps of Engineers Program. This action will appropriate funds and authorize us to enter into agreement with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to construct the rehabilitation of 3,400 feet of 24-inch diameter sewers in the city of St. Louis. The appropriation of $700,000 is necessary due to federal funding being allocated for this project. This federal funding will enable the Corps to bid, contract, and administer construction of this project. Back in 1992, the Corps, the federal government authorized the Corps of Engineers to design or construct combined sewer overflow and reduction projects within the city of St. Louis. The original act authorized $15 million in federal spending. We've since subsequently amended that act, and now that authorization of federal funding is up to $100 million. And then we've broadened the scope to include our combined sewer area in the city and county. And basically what we've been doing is partnering with the Corps of Engineers. They do rehabilitation projects we already have identified. We design those projects. They contract it and administer it, and they basically will pay 75% of the cost. So through this program over the years, right now, we've gotten about $47.8 billion worth of federal funding to do rehabilitation work that we had planned to begin with, so.
Since you mentioned the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, it made me think about the government shutdown. Just in general, maybe this is a question for you. Are there ways in which MSD is being affected by that in significant ways, or ones that we would have to react to either real time or in the future because of things in the past?
The short answer is no, we're really not being affected by the shutdown right now. Any funding such as this is already in place, and so we're okay. If it would stretch on for months and months, then we might have a little different approach, but right now we're in good shape.
Okay, thanks.
So basically, we're requesting appropriation and authorization to enter this agreement with the Corps. Our appropriation is $700 million. Right now, their construction cost estimate for this project they're going to do is 1.7. So that's 700, slightly over the 25%. Whatever the Corps doesn't utilize, then comes back to us. That's what this item is.
What's the policy rationale for the Corps to do this?
It was something, it's called WRDA, it's called the Water Resource Development Act. They have a WRDA bill, it's every other year, and they set aside funding, and then the Corps gets so much funding, and then they have these projects. We can request, we go to the Corps, we'll identify projects, and then they end up actually, some cases they design and construct with the federal funds, but we've got this ongoing agreement that allows them to do this work, and it doesn't go away. Now, we've had to go back as the dollars
Right.
go up, like, as you can see, it was $15 million.
Right.
We'll seek additional authorization. So we'll go to our state reps and, not our state reps, but our federal reps, representatives and federal senators. And they'll have to put this in there, but we'll request it, that they increase this. And the Corps does the same thing.
Yeah, just want to add, you know, this is one of the topics that our federal lobbyist, Brent Frazzle, keeps an eye on and keeps us up to date and makes sure that we're following the bill through to put our 2 cents in at the appropriate time with our elected representatives.
That's great.
All right, the next item is the General Service Agreement Sewer and Channel Design. This action appropriates funds and authorizes staff to enter a design contract. This ordinance authorizes the district to enter a contract with EFK Moen for the design of various projects. The project consists of the design of small sanitary, combined, and stormwater project needed throughout the district. This is really a support engineer for my internal design on items that go beyond what they're capable of doing. Projects will be issued on letter agreement. The appropriation is for $200,000, and the contract allows for one additional $200,000 appropriation. This appropriation is equal to what was presented in the CIRP. This was a new selection. There were 3 proposals provided for this contract, and EFK Moen was the selected proposer. EFK Moen is a WBE. Our goal for MWB participation is 31%. So we're anticipating participation of approximately 82% MWB participation for this project. Next item, I'm going to take 5 as a grouping. These are all general service agreement to provide survey services, primarily to support my internal design staff, and occasionally additional surveys that we need to either for our planning department or any one of our engineering or operations needs for this. So that it's contracts A, B, C, D, and E. This action will appropriate funds and authorize staff to enter into these surveying contracts. The ordinance authorizes the district to enter into contracts with Sabre Incorporated, Civil Design Incorporated, Prairie Engineers, Lion CSG LLC, and Vols Incorporated. The contract is for surveying associated with design of sanitary and storm project. Services provided include land surveys, property strip maps, and easements for projects completed by either in-house or design consultants. Additional general survey services will be provided on an as-needed basis for legal research, legal descriptions, topographic and land survey for district facilities, and other requirements of various district departments. Work is assigned on a project-by-project basis. These contracts for a maximum of $50,000 for fiscal year 26, and then with one option year for fiscal year 2027. There's no MWBE goal or participation required for this, but based on our selections, 4 of the 5 firms that we have selected to do this work are 3 are women-owned and 1 is minority-owned. So essentially, we're getting 80% participation for minority and women.
Just a question about 5 different survey companies winning these contracts. Presumably, each one, they're done on a project-by-project basis, and you look for the best, price and meeting other criteria. Is there an intentional, sort of spreading it out to multiple companies, or is it just kind of a natural outcome that would be different companies winning different contracts? Or do they actually provide different services from each other?
Both. Some of them have expertise, say, at doing property research or doing boundary surveys, work like that, we might give that work to a consultant that does more of that. Most of these are smaller firms, so that's why we keep the contracts smaller. So they're generally supporting my internal, so they're smaller projects. And we spread them out. Again, that's intentional. That way we can have multiple surveyors going at one time. They might only have one or two. They might not be able to get to it in a timely manner.
Okay, thanks.
All right, the next item is stream flow water quality monitor sampling. This appropriates funds and authorizes staff to enter into a contract with Geosyntec Consultant. The purpose of this contract is to perform water quality sampling to comply with the district's post-construction monitoring program as required by the consent decree. Samples will be collected from 6 sites in the Mississippi River on a weekly basis. Samples will be collected from 3 sites on the Missouri River once every 4 weeks to establish water quality impacts for the St. Louis area. Water quality monitoring is required by EPA and MDNR to demonstrate compliance with water quality standards as part of our long-term control plan and consent decree. The water quality monitoring proposal will be for the duration of 3 years with this vendor. This was reselected this past year. The original contract for 1 year with an option to renew for 2 additional years. Our appropriation for this project is $285,000, which is slightly less than what we had in the CRP. We had $350,000. And this is performed services, so there's no MWBE goal in this project. All right, the next 2 items, which are our last 2 items, are both stormwater OMCI reimbursements for the city of Overland. First one is for Coldwater Creek OMCI reimbursement. The ordinance authorized the district to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with the city of Overland for eligible stormwater expenditures where the revenue is collected in the Coldwater Creek OMCI. Eligible stormwater expenditures include the following: stormwater, sewer and inlet construction, drainage improvements, stream bank stabilization, and erosion control projects, clearing under bridges, cleaning detention basins, stormwater planning or engineering costs, and other stormwater-related expenses determined appropriate by the district. The first project in Coldwater Creek is the Wild Acres Lake construction project. The city has completed design services requesting reimbursement for the construction and improvements around Wild Acres Lake. The improvements can include spillway reconstruction, the addition of a forebay to the lake with grading and mended soils, some bank stabilization, and planning to catch for water quality purposes. The total cost of lake improvement is estimated to be $289,000. The city is planning to, they're seeking $146,248, and then once additional funds through the future grant program are available, they'll be seeking other dollars for that project. Total cost is approximately $290,000. Second project being constructed is located in the University City OMCI. This ordinance authorizes the district to enter into agreement with the city of Overland where revenue is collected in the University City OMCI. The project is the Brooks Park storm improvements. So the city has done design services and seeking reimbursement for the construction of a box culvert in Brooks Park. The existing concrete bowl at the culvert entrance is deteriorated. They'll be reconstructing that and installing new safety fencing. The total cost of the rehabilitation is estimated at $71,519, and that's the request by the city of $71,519.
So these are all stormwater stuff from
Correct.
Prop S?
Yes. No, they're not Prop S project. These are OMCI dollars that we had originally in the taxing sub-districts,
Gotcha.
where we had the OMCI reimbursement grant program.
Yep.
With the new Prop S or our, what we call stormwater funds coming. Next month, we'll be appropriating those dollars for the grant program for the upcoming year.
I think when we do that, maybe we should be noting those things that we're spending and, saying, highlighting what these dollars that we've collected.
Yeah, I think, in talking with Bess, I think once we start constructing, a lot of our work right now under the new Prop S is design.
Right.
The plan is to really get some potential media attention as we start these construction projects. I know she's real anxious. I tell her, I said, let us get it designed first and get our easements.
Chomping at the bit.
But we do have one actually that's, our very first one is on the street for bids right now. And then we'll have some, we're also appropriating some additional dollars next month for the under 50. So we'll be doing similar to what we do for repairs. If there's small, under 50,000 storm projects we can do, we'll utilize our same group of contractors, and that'll allow us to, one, it enhances that program, and two, it allows us to take care of small projects.
Looking forward to it.
That concludes the agenda.
Is December 2nd, 2025, and I think we're ready to adjourn.
Trustee Evans, we are ready when you are.
Okay, we'll call to order the 320th meeting of the Finance Committee. Can I get a roll call, please?
Yes, with trustee Watson online and all other trustees in the room, the record will reflect that all trustees are present.
All right, can I get a motion to approve the minutes of the prior meeting?
Second.
Okay, up next is the quarterly pension update.
Yeah, so we've got Deanna Jones and Scott Driscoll on the phone, or on Teams or on the phone from NEPC, and they're going to do the quarterly market update and pension fund performance update.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Can you hear us okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to start on page 4 of our deck. So one more page down. Thank you. So we only have one agenda item today, which is covering the quarterly performance as of Q3, so as of September. This is the page you all are kind of familiar with, where we talk about what's happened in the market. I'm going to cover the market, and we can welcome any questions. We're in the middle of a government shutdown, so if you have questions about how the market is performing with that regard, please let me know. And then I'm going to turn it over to Scott to talk about the pension performance for the quarter and year to date. So the top bullet, since we last met, the Fed has decreased Fed fund rates by an additional 25 basis points. So for the year of 2025, that is an overall decrease to Fed cuts, totaling 50 basis points. And where this is going to be particularly impactful for MSD, you'll see that some of those small cap exposures you have. So when you think about portions or asset classes that will benefit from a Fed cut rate. Smaller cap names are kind of first in line to benefit, and that's because those companies, those smaller companies that need to secure debt or take out loans in order to grow and reinvest in their businesses, they forwent some of that advancement when rates were really high. Now that rates have been cut, that segment of the market can now finance things for cheaper. So you'll see that portion of your portfolio in the market overall within small cap was the top performer for the quarter. Another place to think about it is your return seeking fixed income. So within that bucket of your fixed income portfolio, you have out of benchmark sectors, particularly high yield fixed income, high yield bonds. And those are also a portion of your portfolio that is the beneficiary of that Fed cut rate. Now, why did the Fed cut rate? Last year when we had discussion about Fed rates, one of the things that was kind of sticky was the labor market, and you're starting to see some softening within that labor market. So that was that in addition to some other softening economic indicator led to the Fed cutting rates. Chairman Powell came out, I want to say last week, when there was the additional 25 basis point cut, and he signaled to the market that it's possible that there will be an additional cut in December, but not guaranteed. So what could potentially complicate that is the second bullet. While the government is in shutdown, it is the data that the Fed needs to process and digest to determine if the rates need to be cut again is not going to be available because of the government shutdown. And those movements, those cuts are very data driven. So with the government shutdown now edging into the 35th day, they won't have access to that data that they need to make the decision about a cut in December or not. The second bullet, and we'll see this in a minute, the equity markets continue to be one of the larger drivers of performance for the market overall, but also specifically for MSD. And within that performance, we're going to talk once again about the Magnificent Seven. So those tech names that are really driving a lot of that outperformance in the market. As with anything, when you have one portion of the market kind of having an outsized allocation within the benchmark and also within your portfolio, it's important to kind of take those earnings and rebalance to your target. So that's something that our team does on behalf of MSD on a quarterly basis. The second bullet, we are encouraging clients to make sure that they're maintaining their safe haven fixed income exposure. Where you see that within the MSD portfolios, within that TIPS treasury and that core fixed income piece of the portfolio. It's incredibly important to make sure that you're staying within targets within those asset classes, because that's going to be your source of liquidity in times of market distress. If we can go to page 5. So this is a bar chart, and Scott's going to talk about the specific numbers, but this is just a bar chart of how the respective broad indices perform for the quarter. So if you follow with me from left to right, those first 5 columns are your equity markets, so the stock within the market for the quarter. And I want to draw your eye to the MSCIEM, which is the Emerging Market Index. That's the top performing portion of the equity market within the quarter, which you saw with the emerging markets. If you remember last year, towards the end of the year when we came in, we talked about emerging markets, which at that point were underperforming. And kind of 2 things were driving that. The strength of the dollar. So the US dollar was strong because we had high rates, and so investor dollars were essentially coming out of international markets going into domestic markets, so into the USD. You're seeing the reverse of that. While as our rates are coming down, we're having softening indicators. Everyone is digesting kind of what those softening indicators mean, the impact of them, in addition to the government shutdown and tariffs. And so you're starting to see that emerging market and the column next to it, although not as strong of a performer for Q3. The MSCI, EFI, both of those are international benchmarks. You're starting to see them post positive returns for the quarter as we have all these things to contend with on the domestic side. If you go back over to the left with me, the three columns closest to the left, so the MSCI, ACWI IMI, the S&P 500, and the Russell 2500, those are also equity benchmarks, kind of focusing in on those two middle ones, the S&P 500 and the Russell 2500. Russell 2500 is representative of broad uh, domestic markets on the small cap and mid cap size. And to my earlier point, you saw some positive performance there as those companies are the beneficiaries of lower rates. The S&P 500, which is a large cap index, and it represents a large portion of your equity portfolio. Those returns continue to be strong. Kind of if you pull out and look at the return data just over the past 24 months, the S&P 500 has been one of the top performing portions of the market. A lot of that is driven by the Magnificent Seven, and in a minute we're going to kind of walk through one of those pages that illustrates that for you, because the Magnificent Seven is continuing to perform really well. It's having an outsized allocation within that S&P 500. So to my earlier points of sticking to kind of those guardrails that were adopted when we were first retained as your consultant is incredibly important to make sure that you are not overly exposed to any segment of the market. We go to kind of that middle column, the Bloomberg Aggregate Index, that is representative of core fixed income. So when you think about core fixed income, think of things like a heavy allocation to treasuries, quasi-government securities like Fannie and Freddie debt, municipal things like that that are really conservative pieces of the fixed income market. You'll also have some allocation to very high quality corporate debt. So think AAA or above. That portion of the market relative to the equity market was some underperformance, but relative to its historic performance as rates have been really high, you're seeing some outperformance there. Um, I'll maybe just end on that very last uh, column, the dollar index. So that's representative of the returns of the US dollar for the quarter. And as you see, it's one of the lower performing portions of the market for the quarter. And that's on those weakening economic signals that I mentioned earlier. So if we can go to page 7 very quickly, and I won't go through all these bullet points, but this is just illustrative of how small caps benefit in a market where interest rates are declining. And you see that the bar chart all the way over to the right kind of shows you where small cap rates are on a quarterly basis as rates are coming down. You see that that's some outperformance there at the last chart. And then maybe I'll wrap up on page 8 and turn it over to Scott. So this is just illustrative of the CapEx spending, the quarterly spending for Magnificent Seven companies. And so if you just follow kind of the arc of these bar charts, you see that these companies are still reinvesting in their businesses. So that's really indicative of those strong performance and that outsized weight that's causing the outsized weight that they have on the index. So I'll pause there and see what questions I can answer. Um, and if, well, I guess, sorry, one more page. If we could go to page 17. Uh, so as I mentioned earlier, we are on day 35 of the government shutdown. So right now it's tied for the second largest shutdown, which was in 2018 when under the same administration shutdown happened, and that was related to the proposal for a U.S.-Mexico wall to be built. That's what caused that 2018 shutdown. It lasted for 35 days. So if we don't come to a resolution by the end of today, then this government shutdown, will officially be the longest shutdown that we've had. On a plus side, markets tend to kind of shrug off the impact of a government shutdown. So if you follow with me from left to right, the first two columns are the beginning of shutdowns, the end of shutdowns. The 1 month prior shows you what the returns of the S&P 500, so that large cap index, the returns were 1 month prior to the shutdown. Uh, the middle column shows how the returns of the S&P 500 were during the shutdown, and then the 12 months following. So you see, even in periods during market shutdowns where you saw some negative performance, markets normally rebound pretty heartily within 12 months. So that's a plus side of uh, or to give you a little bit of peace about how your portfolio will return during a shutdown. So with that, I'll pause and see what questions I can answer. And if none, I'll turn it over to Scott to talk about performance. And Scott, you could just let everybody know what page you want to start on.
Sure. Good morning. So if there aren't any questions, I'll dive into the performance here of the pension overall and your underlying investments. I think a good page always to look at, and this goes to some of Deanna's comments, is page 20, where it shows the plan's asset allocation relative to the policy makeup of the plan. So the underlying, targets relative to where you're currently invested based on market movements. I mean, you take a look at page 20 here. We have a current column percentage-wise, a policy percentage-wise, and then a difference. You look at that difference, and it shows you really how much have you deviated relative to the target within a certain asset class within the plan here. And when you go down this page, you can see it's all within very reasonable ranges. There's nothing that's too outsized. A big benefit from an OCIO portfolio in the trading team is the fact that when things may get outsized, they're able to trade and pull assets within respectable ranges or pull them back to target. So I think this is always a good page to look at as trustees to get a sense of where you are, get a sense of where you are relative to your target allocation. Another great page to look at is the next page, page 21. So this page right here, this shows you asset growth summary over time. And when we look at this, we look at, say, the table below, it shows you last 3 months and then the year-to-date column on the right. And it starts with beginning of assets. So let's say the starting assets of 7/1/2025, plan was at $347.5 million. And it ended the quarter $358.5 million. So a big part of the increase, really the large increase there, is the return on investments. So investments, within this quarter, and a lot being driven by equities, significant amount being driven by equities, really increased the value of the plan. And, that's factoring assets that are being pulled out as well. And when you take a look at that year-to-date number, when we'll look at these numbers when we look at the actual performance of the plan, but you can see total assets increased, from 1/1/2025 to 9/30/2025, from $330 million to almost $359 million. So pretty significant increase. That increase is, it's driven by investment earnings, and a lot of it is driven by investment earnings post the first quarter. First quarter was a very bumpy ride. And since the first quarter, the markets, or I should say since mid-April for that matter, markets on the growth side, the equity side have really driven the performance. And to take a look at that is if we could please go to page 24. And on page 24, I talked about, the underlying numbers, what's behind those asset numbers I just showed you. If you look at the pension within the past 3 months, so that's the third quarter, the pension was up 5%. So that's a pretty strong return, over a 3-month period of time. And year to date, so through the first 9 months of the year, the pension is up 12.4%. We'll look at it, equity is definitely key driver of performance here. If we look at it on a relative basis to peers, other public funds, it's very competitive. I know when we look at plans, we always want to look at what your goals are, so looking at relative to, your own targets, but it is good to see how you're performing relative to your peers. And you can see within the third quarter, you were within the 41st percentile, and then you were within the top third year to date, 27th percentile here. So posting some very strong relative returns, but moreover, posting very strong absolute returns for the plan during the first 9 months of the year here. And if we want to take, a look under the hood, if we go to page 25. So page 25, this touches upon Deanna's comments where she was talking about the various markets, the various asset classes where we saw performance driven. And, I hit on the top level, that's your total pension, the 5.0 over the quarter. But when we look at your public equity, we break it down. The public equity portfolio was up 6.8%. So that's a strong return in the quarter. And when we look at large cap, so your large cap is comprised of the FTSE RAFI US 1000, which is, it's more value-oriented large cap portfolio, as well as you have the flagship S&P 500 portfolio. That's the SSGA portfolio. And you can see collectively they were up 7.9%. So that's a pretty strong return during the quarter here. The SSGA portfolio goes back to that Magnificent Seven comments that Deanna had. It's becoming a bit concentrated where you have, just a handful of names driving performance, really moving from a core large cap portfolio tilting towards growth because of technology names. But you do have it offset with the value exposure here. So the value exposure within the FTSE RAFI 1000. But you can see, those are the key drivers of performance on that side within the third quarter. And we take it out a column, you see year to date. So your large cap portfolio is up 14.8% year to date. And, the two FTSE as well as SSGA portfolios, they were invested, late January, early February of 2025. So really the key drivers or the key underlying numbers under that performance there. The small cap has not posted the same level of results that we've seen in large cap stocks in 2025, but we're still seeing, strong numbers out of small cap. Collectively, your small cap composite, small/mid cap, because you have our small cap vehicle, which is numerous small cap managers, as well as you have the Kennedy mid cap value portfolio. In aggregate, up 7.3%. I do want to point out that our portfolio, the NEPC US small cap, definitely has a higher quality bias, as well as the mid cap value portfolio has a bit of a higher quality bias as well. So during a growth-oriented, sentiment-driven market that we've seen over the past quarter, they will underperform, and that's been pretty common theme over a year to date. There are some interesting numbers when we look at small cap stocks in 2025, and some of the interesting numbers here, some of the non-earners have been some of the top performers. So companies that aren't earning as much money as, say, your higher quality cash flow generating companies are earning, are returning more when we look at the actual portfolio results. That can be a little concerning when we do move into periods of distress. And I'll say that the small cap vehicle, without a doubt, is more high quality biased here. So that's where you'll see some underperformance during, the risk on markets within small cap. So I did want to point that out. Page 26. So page 26 has our international, the emerging, as well as the global equity portfolio. And within these three buckets, they represent approximately 31% of total assets, so a pretty significant amount. And collectively in the third quarter, the strategies were up 6%, but year to date, the strategies are up 18.5%. And this goes back to Deanna's comments. We were talking about, third quarter, the US companies definitely rebounded relative to where they were earlier in the year on a relative basis to non-US. But 2025, when we look at the markets overseas, some of the strongest performers there, say you look at that Global Alpha International Small Cap Fund, underperforming its benchmark, but up 20% or 19.5%. So very strong absolute return here, especially when we look at it relative to the domestic markets. I mean, take it a step further and you look at the emerging markets, the emerging equity up over 25% collectively. So the emerging markets have posted pretty strong results. And then when we factor in emerging non-US as well as US exposure, the global equity portfolio in 2025 is up 16.4%. So really, the story here is when we look at stocks outside of the US, they have been, significant contributors to performance of the plan so far this year. And the next page, 27. So this is the debt, the fixed income. We have it broken out between, the safe haven fixed income. Deanna talked about safe haven earlier, as well as return seeking credit, which is, a bit more higher yielding. You would expect to get more return out of it. Past quarter, numbers were modest. They were up 1.8% within the public debt part of the portfolio here. And that's close to 29% of total assets. In year to date, the number is up 5.6%. So that's a pretty strong result. When you look at fixed income, 5.6% over 9 months, that's a strong return. That's what you would hope you would get when you're looking at a fixed income return. And, it's broken out underneath with more of the safe haven. We have that Treasury Index Fund by SSGA, the US TIPS, as well as that intermediate corporate fund that's managed by Income Research and Management. So, there's a very strong balance within safe haven fixed income between short-term US bonds, as well as then we get corporate, more intermediate bonds through the Income Research and Management. And then there's the return-seeking credit. So return-seeking credit is made up of some of your, higher returning underlying fixed income strategies. This portfolio was up 1.8% in the quarter. Definitely trailed the benchmark a bit. A big part of the trailing was it was underweight about 10% or so to high yield, and high yield did have a strong quarter. Spreads have come in quite a bit over, recent history, not making high yield as attractive as it once was, but it still has posted some pretty good results. And our underweight, unfortunately, did detract a bit, but still up, 1.8% within the overall fixed income portfolio. That's a pretty solid return right there. The last page I'd like to touch upon is page 28. And so page 28, this has the multi-asset portfolio, which is broken down between real assets as well as global asset allocation. We look at the page, you still have legacy assets within trust, it's $89,000, which will be effectively written off. That's why it's still on the page here, but represents, less than a basis point of total portfolio exposure. That's why it's on the page here. But when we look at the multi-asset portfolio, which is approximately 15%, 14.5% of total assets as of 9/30, you can see multi-asset was up 5%. And year to date, it's up 13.1%. And when we look at the multi-asset, this has real assets, whether or not we're looking at, commodities within real assets, as well as real estate. Then we factor in your global asset allocation manager, the PIMCO manager, which the PIMCO manager, that's a strategy that moves in and out of the markets, where it sees opportunities. It may be holding cash on the sidelines. And when it sees things at a value, it can definitely swoop in and, generate some pretty significant returns. It's a pretty good balance between equities as well as fixed income, as well as some agriculture, inflation-linked bonds, commodities. So it's a pretty well-diversified asset. And, we look at it since it was initially invested, it's up 9.6%. So that's a pretty strong return here. But I think collectively, as a whole, when we factor in those three different strategies, up 13.2% year to date. That's a pretty solid result for the multi-asset portfolio here. So I did want to stop. I know I just threw a lot at you, and pause for questions here from the trustees.
I don't see any questions, Scott. Thanks.
All right.
Well, that concludes our formal performance commentary. We will see you all next year for Q4 commentary.
All right. Hopefully more good news. We'll see. Thanks for the report. It's always fun to talk about strong positive numbers.
Yes, likewise. Thank you, everyone. Have a great morning.
All right. Bye-bye.
Take care. Good
Bye.
seeing everybody.
And trustees, I'll just add to that, this is the highest asset value we've had in the plan, so it's nice to have a nice rebound from 2022, and every asset class was down. And from a valuation standpoint, we usually do 3-year smoothing, that's what the actuary does. That 2022 poor performance will drop off, be replaced by 2025. Hopefully we maintain this performance through the end of the year, at least stay flat, we will see. But we should expect to see an uptick in the actuarial valuation, which uses that 3-year smoothing. If I were to estimate market valuation, we'd be over 90% funded from a market standpoint right now, which is a strong public plan performance. We're also, this week, will be, we do make 2 pension contributions per year. Actuary determines how much we should. The second payment for this year will be about $7 million or a little bit more is going to come in this week. We're going to put that into the plan this week, so that'll also add some more assets to the plan. But we do still have, we're paying out about $2 million, a little over $2 million a month in benefits too. So, so this performance is in light of paying out more than $2 million in benefit, which is great to see the assets grow like this. All right, now I'm turning it over to Marion for the next couple.
Thank you, Tim. Just real quickly, I didn't get a chance to do this while they were here, but during the audit committee meeting, we had a couple of members of the finance staff that were in the audience. Jessica Berry, who's our accounting manager, Jennifer Rice, and Lori Harbaugh, our accountant threes in that area. I just want to take a quick moment to thank them for their work on the audit. They make something that's really difficult appear to be easy. And so I want to thank the accounting team and those that support us for the audit result. So moving on to the agenda items, I will start off with the Adjustment Review Committee report. As required by the district's wastewater ordinance, I'm reporting customer account adjustments that are greater than $5,000 for the period July through September of 2025. During this period, there were a total of 43 adjustments totaling approximately $464,000. These were credit adjustments to customer accounts. As listed in the first section of the report, the adjustments section, there were 19 adjustments which totaled $380,000 approximately, and those adjustments were related to usage adjustments reported to MSD by the various water utilities that provide us with data. There were 6 adjustments totaling $69,000 that were related to water off adjustments, meaning that we had to go back to the date that water was actually turned off, make those adjustments to the customer accounts. There were 2 accounts in the write-off section that were written off due to properties being sold by the LRA. That amount totaled approximately $12,460. Items in the other section of the report at the bottom, those actually, again, represent billings to the Bridgeton landfill. There were 3 billings totaling $30,000 to them for wastewater treatment costs related to the landfill. And there were a total of 2 adjustments that were made for billings to MOAM for $673,000 for their share of expenses related to the Lower Merrimack wastewater treatment plant.
Marion, you said that two of the write-offs for LRA.
Yes.
Do we write them off when they dispose of the property?
We do.
Okay. Do we know what the total number is that we're potentially, what our liability is for those losses, for everything that they control?
We don't, because we get this information from them, after that sale has taken place.
Right.
So we don't really have a complete inventory of what they're holding. That's probably something we could reach out to them and obtain that information.
I mean, I don't know, it just seems like there's a potential hit that we could take depending on, and I guess we might want to know what it is.
Well, for these types of accounts, keep in mind, these are folks that have not paid property
Right.
taxes, so.
Yeah.
We are,
But we have, ultimately, when they sell, if they sell, we have to take the write-offs.
we do, but we book an adjustment for an anticipated write-off
okay.
in our financial statements. We're required to do that. So we estimate based on historical information. We typically set that reserve at about $6 million a year. So when these come in, they just are posted against that reserve.
Okay, I'm sorry. That's good.
Any other questions? Okay, if not, I will move to my last item, which is year-end budget transfer. So the district's budget transfer policy requires that any transfer of unauthorized appropriations, regardless of the dollar amount, between funds that are needed to accommodate the appropriate accounting of cost for year-end closing activities shall be made. So I have to present to the board and report to the Finance Committee in the form of a resolution to be considered. So the proposed resolution is outlined in the detail sheet that's before you, identifies budget transfers of approximately $574,700 between funds that are necessary in order for the district to close out its fiscal year 2025. It's important to note this resolution does not increase the total amount that the board authorized to be spent by the district, as was approved by the board when it approved our FY25 budget. So all we're doing is moving available budget from one fund to another fund. We're not increasing that total amount that was authorized. And that, again, is necessary for us to run through transactions related to year-end activities. Are there any questions that I can answer about the resolution? Okay, if not, that's all that I have. Thank you.
All right, and I've just got one more item, and that's the monthly operating portfolio. I'll go through this pretty quickly. We're in compliance with policy, so that's good. Portfolio is about $34 million higher than last month. We received some funding from SRF program for the expenses we've put out for the FBI program, so that drove a lot of that increase. That almost all went away yesterday. We had about $30 million of interest payments on debt due yesterday. So while it was here on Thursday, it's not here today. Our yield to maturity on a portfolio is about 50 basis points higher than the benchmark. Both of those are down 6 to 7 basis points. So some impact from the Federal Reserve cut starting to show in our portfolio, but also in the benchmark. Oh, that is an overnight rate, and while these are relatively short term, they're not, they don't move exactly with the overnight rate changes. Weighted average maturity, we were down, maybe from 0.86 to 0.8, so roughly the same. Weighted average maturity for the benchmark, also the same, down about 2 points. And the sector allocation, you can see we're butting up right against our commercial paper limit. That's because we've had the best yields from commercial paper. We've kind of maximized that, but that's something we have to watch to make sure we don't go over the limit. So we saw about a 2-point swing between Treasury bonds and commercial paper. Treasury bonds are 2 points lower than last month. Commercial paper 2 points up. But again, we're right at that limit. So we'll be looking at probably more agency notes and maybe some treasuries just to make sure we stay under that 25% limit. The fund summary in the bottom left, almost all that $34 million is in the MSD operations number, the big 631 down there. And then we see kind of the same changes we see in the overall portfolio in the weighted average maturity and yield to maturity of kind of the sub portfolio. So weighted average maturity down a little bit in each of those, yield to maturity also down just a little bit. And then maturity distribution, because we'd accumulated some assets to pay off the 30 million in interest yesterday. At this point, we had a decent swing where we had about 8 percentage point swing from our 1 to 2 year to our 0 to 1 year. So we were up 8 points, went from about 61 to 69% in the 0 to 1 year, and from 29 down to almost 21% in the 1 to 2. But with the payment we made yesterday, we'll see a lot of that swing back. And then very minor changes in the benchmark portfolio. They pretty much stay where half or more of their assets are in that 1 to 2 year period, and that they all held steady. Any questions on the operating fund portfolio? All right, Trustee Evans, there is nothing more for the Finance Committee meeting. Thank you.
Okay, the next meeting date is tentatively December 2nd, 2025. Can I get a motion to adjourn, please?
Second.
Thank you.
The Stakeholder Relations Committee meeting. Roll call by the chair.
All right, we still have Trustee Watson online, all the trustees in the room, so all trustees are present.
No comments by the chair. Approval of committee meeting minutes, September 30th, 2025.
So moved.
Thank you. First, we have two discussions by Jenny Kinstra. Jenny?
Good morning, trustees. I would like to present to you an ordinance for replacement services to review our customer information system. This action is required to authorize the district to enter into a contract with eSource Companies, LLC, and it comes in two parts. One is to perform discovery, meaning to identify a billing, customer information system and billing solution application. And part two of that is to produce an RFP, which would identify an implementation partner. Our current customer information system and billing system is, our contract ends December of 2027. The amount is for $180,000. And eSource Companies was found to be, through RFP, most responsive and best fit to meet our requirements. Questions? It is Vertex.
Every 3 years or something?
Marion, how long was that contract?
It was much longer than that. I think we've been with Vertex for probably 10 years now.
wow.
And it's quite difficult to switch, so that's why we haven't done it like on an every 3-year basis.
Gotcha. Cool.
And it is quite possible that they will respond to the
Right.
RFP, so that might be the same system, but an upgrade. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. The next ordinance is related to our information governance program, and it is to authorize the district to enter into a contract with Moray Global Corporation to provide and implement a software solution for physical records management. This also went out to RFP, and Moray Global Corporation was found to be most responsive and best fit to meet our requirements. That amount is for $350,000 over a 3-year period one-year contract with 2 option years. Any questions? Quite a range. Okay.
I mean, is there, why would that be? I mean, or are we missing something and, yeah, I'm just.
I can look into that. I don't know why there's that large of a disparity.
What was the middle bid?
I don't have that information in front of me, but I can certainly provide it.
Typically, the RFP teams are voting on a few different things that are defined in the RFP.
350, they budgeted closer to the lower.
Yeah, they would, and all the responses would have been measured on how well the response met the scope of the RFP. So if they thought the one was lacking, the low bid was lacking, for instance, we may have had to rebid or go back out and say, okay, we, change our.
This could be the result of several iterations.
This one probably, I don't think was, but it could be. But if they are choosing, someone on the, not the 7 million one, then the committee was comfortable that the responder met the scope of what we were looking for.
Yeah, it just seemed that with such a big disparity, it's might be worth understanding why.
Oh, no, I think that's fair.
Just to see what is it.
That's a fair point.
I can follow up on that. Thank you.
Probably just threw a number out because they don't want to do it.
That could, no.
That's,
They're just bidding to be bidding. They
Yeah.
had a bid sitting in a drawer and.
Yeah, well, and often they wouldn't, if they don't want to bid, they wouldn't bid, because these are a pain to respond to. And I do get, on the financial side, I often get, I shouldn't say often, but I do get calls occasionally from people who I thought would bid that don't, and they say, we just don't make money on, government agencies. And so they don't want to go low enough. But you have other ones that see a government contract and they think, oh, that's a way to make money. But yeah, this is an unusually large discrepancy.
I'll follow up with
They had an
with
intern
response.
working on it. Yes, yeah.
Thank you.
thank you, Jenny. Next, we have 2 discussions by Tracy Coleman, one regarding an ordinance for the district's classification plan, and the second is a resolution for appointment of a civil service commissioner.
Awesome. Good morning, trustees. I'd like to get your attention on introduction and adoption of ordinance 16735, which is the classification plan. We're making updates to a few job titles. Starting with the engineering department, we have the resident project representative, which would be a C9. The resident project representative senior, which would be a C11 position. In the operations department, we have a customer care supervisor, which is a C4, and the customer care team lead, which is a C2. We're going to have a retitle position in the executive director's department. They're going from the central service coordinator to the facilities coordinator, which is going to remain the same grade. Are there any questions, trustees, about the new job titles for the classification plan? Okay. So next is a resolution, which is Resolution 3986, is the appointment of Civil Service Commissioner Brooke Sharp Esquire. We're excited to have Brooke. She comes with experience in being in other civil service commissions, also serving as a municipal judge. We were looking for your approval on this particular resolution. If you do approve it, she will start her commission on November 13th, 2025, for a 3-year term expiring on November 12th, 2028. Are there any questions about this particular commissioner?
Yes, is it a full-time position? What is the commitment, and is there a salary with it?
Yes. So it is, I refer to it as a voluntary position, similar to what you guys do. The pay for it is $20 every time that we have a meeting or if we have a civil service hearing. So it's far from full-time. I think would fall less than part-time. It's subject to how often we have a civil service hearing. Those are based off how often an employee feels like they're wronged, and then want to be made whole in front of that particular commission. So I would say we've gone a couple of years without. We've got one hearing coming this year, so that gives you an idea of the frequency. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
I'm just curious, these aren't people that work for MSD, they're citizens.
These are just lay people with experience in human resources or management. In this case, we have somebody that has commission experience, which is really nice to have. But yeah, these are not full-time employees. They do not receive an MSD check. They're considered suppliers who get a one-time payment when they do a commission. Those are great questions, by the way.
And the reason for the opening is we have a current commissioner who has served 2 3-year terms, so he's termed out, and that's the reason for this appointment. So Brooke would be eligible to serve another 3-year term if that's what happens.
Any additional questions? All right, thank you.
Okay, next we have 2 discussions by Todd Oshbacher. One regarding MSD's federal and state legislative priorities for 2026, and the next is regarding a resolution for state legislative lobbying services. Todd?
Thank you. Good morning, trustees. I do have 2 topics. I'm going to cover the last one first. Resolution number 3985. This will authorize the district to renew its contract with our Missouri lobbyist, Kina Iman. Kina helps us maintain strong relationships with elected officials in Missouri and their staffs. She monitors all legislative activities that may impact MSD. In fact, she reads every piece of legislation that's introduced, and that's a lot in a session, and she summarizes and sends the bills to us that could impact us and our operations and business. We've been with Kina. She's been our lobbyist for the last 19 years. By virtue of our relationship, she really knows us. She's very insightful and extremely responsive. She lets us know when something's coming up we need to really pay attention to, and she really gets on it. This will be a 1-year contract extension effective January 1st, and there'll be 3 more 1-year renewals after that. We pay for this contract $60,000 a year. Any questions? If not, I'll move on to our federal and state legislative priorities. The priorities are developed as part of our strategic business operating plan. They're updated on an annual basis by the senior management team in consultation with both Kina on the state side and with Brent Franzel of Cardinal Point on the federal side. Now, the 2026 priorities essentially carry over the 2025 with some modifications. In the 2025, we have get to know new legislators at the state level, well, they're, so that kind of changed, but pretty much the same. I just want to provide you today a few highlights, not go through them all. On the state side, our primary objective is always to, as I said, maintain good relations, both with the legislators and with the governor's office and the regulators. To that end, Brett, Bess, Tim, and I meet with legislators at the Capitol, arranged by Kina in Jeff City, on a date in January or February of each year. And with Kina's guidance, we track and influence, where appropriate, legislation in any number of categories, things that might conflict with our authority under our charter, get into our territory and space that we need to protect a little bit, laws that might hinder our ability to comply with the consent decree. On the finance side, laws that could impact our ability to collect payment. This might include laws that could affect our liens for unpaid services. In fact, that has happened, and we have followed that closely. My pages got mixed up. And laws that, here we go, laws that could impact our tax revenue, such as last year, And we expect the coming session to have a lot of property tax freeze legislation. And of course, the senior property tax freeze modifications to that. We'll continue to secure all available loan and grant funding, SRF financing, and continue to educate elected officials and their constituents on our stormwater capital program, as was mentioned earlier today. Turning to the federal priorities, again, focus is positive working relationships with our senators, congressional reps, their staffs. Brett and I visit DC in April to meet with the legislators and their staff. We work with Brent, our lobbyist, on maintaining communications when there's an issue of importance to us. We work with Brent to prepare correspondence. He delivers it to our legislators' offices and presents it on our behalf. He's very active in that regard. An example of something we've worked on is legislation that seeks an exemption from PFAS liability for wastewater entities, passive receivers like us. We engage in similar efforts as with the state. We monitor and influence legislation. This could include internal revenue code changes that could impact our pension and retirement plans, assistance to low-income ratepayers, and at Ginny's urging, legislation and regulations on infrastructure cybersecurity. We will continue to work with the nationwide group NACWA, the National Association of Clean Water Agencies, on issues of importance, again, like PFAS, and importantly, updates to EPA's criteria regarding affordability of rates. Pay attention to tax, pension, IRS issues that could impact both our capital program and, of course, our retirement plans and benefits. Now, where'd that last page go? That's pretty much it, trustees. My pages have messed up, but, oh, and finally, tax exemption for municipal bonds. Something we always watch for. There's been talk of that. There was talk last year. It didn't go anywhere, but Tim really stays on that one. And Marion. So that's a nutshell of our priorities for the coming year. We don't require any board action or approval from you for these, but certainly we're open to suggestion, comment, criticism. Anything you have, let us know. Otherwise, we'll do our best to execute on it.
All right, thank you, Todd.
Thank you.
I need a motion for approval to go into closed session to discuss personal actions under section 610.021.3 RSMO.
All right, we'll take a roll call vote. Trustee Kistner. Trustee Wabi? Aye. Trustee Watson? Are we still have
Yes.
it? Thank you.
Yes.
Trustee Evans?
Yes.
Trustee Nicholasison?
Yes.
Trustee Wilson?
Yes.
All right, we're in closed session.
I get a motion approval to come out of closed session.
So move.
All righty, we are out of closed session. Next tentative meeting date is Tuesday, December 2nd, 2025. Motion and approval for an adjournment.
So moved.
We are adjourned. Thank you.